let's talk Terry McLaurin. Now, he's facing off against Jalen Jackson. This is the Bears have been tough against the wide receivers. They are 27th in wide receiver points allowed on the season. So this is a tougher matchup. And you can see by my rankings, there are going to be multiple reasons why I think Terry McLaurin is, it's going to be hard to rank him at consensus. So the ranking right here, this wide receiver 23 is the consensus right now. I just pulled it off of Fantasy Pros for half point. And then this is my ranking. I'm in the accuracy ranking contest. So if I were just giving pure advice, I would say it's even lower than wide receiver 27. But in this contest, anything can happen. Terry McLaurin is a baller. He's a talented wide receiver, but I want to be lower than consensus, lower than my peers here on Terry McLaurin. So far in the season, McLaurin only has a 16% target share. That's 57th. Okay. And that's despite he's playing 100% of the routes. He's gotten 11 deep targets. That's third among all wide receivers. He's 14th in air yards. So he's putting up wide receiver one depth numbers, but he's not getting any underneath work at all. He's 14th among wide receivers in average target distance. He's 19th in receiving yards. He is 8th in unrealized air yards. So he and Carson Wentz have not connected sometimes on these deep passes, and that's been what's keeping him from becoming a fantasy football bastion of success. This year, he's wide receiver 36 in fantasy points per game, wide receiver 31 overall in total points. Only one touchdown on the year, 326 receiving yards in 5 games. So he's averaging about 65 receiving yards per game. He's averaging about 4 catches per game, 17.2 yards per reception. So McLaurin's role is almost exclusively run these deep routes, and we'll see if Carson can connect with you, which we were happy about Carson Wentz coming to Washington and hitting McLaurin on these deep targets, but we were also counting on Carson Wentz hitting him on the short targets, and he's not been targeting him on the closer to the line of scrimmage plays. And yeah, so that's what I would have to say about Terry McLaurin. Is he a good start this week? I think he's probably a grit your teeth flex play at best. Yeah, I'm sure you can find 2 other wide receivers and a couple other players off the bench. I would not be starting, Brian Robinson this week over Terry McLaurin, for instance, right? There's a lot of hype over Brian Robinson, but I'm not moving a speculative player for a player who's going to get 4 catches and 60 yards in a game. Even looking at the game log, right? 58, 75, 102, 76. So he's had at least 58 receiving yards in 4 or 5 games. He's had at least 75 in 3 or more of these games. He did have a bust game against Trayvon Diggs where he had 2 catches for 15 yards, but he had 92 air yards in that game, despite finishing as the wide receiver 80. So I think wide receiver 27 is the appropriate ranking for him right now.